Dr. Phil is a doctor the same way Dr. Pepper is. Big up to Scrubs. This is The Explainer. Welcome.
You know, for over 20 years, we've all known Dr. Phil as that tough love TV guy, right? Well, his latest adventure, it wasn't on some soundstage. Nope, it was in a Texas bankruptcy court. And what we're about to unpack here is a story of alleged fraud, some pretty shady backroom deals, and a massive $500 million corporate meltdown that is, I kid you not, way more dramatic than anything you've ever seen on his show. So let's get into it.
All right, so let's set the scene. Back in 2022, after a solid 21-year run, the Dr. Phil show on CBS finally wrapped up. Now, he publicly blamed the whole wokeism thing, but let's be real, daytime TV ratings were tanking pretty much everywhere. So what does Dr. Phil do? He does what he does best. He pivots. And this time, he forged let's call it a holy alliance with the huge Christian television network, TBN.
And the whole point of this alliance? To create a brand new network. It would eventually get the name Merit Street Media. The vision was massive. The promises were even bigger. And the price tag? Well, it was just staggering.
We're talking about a 10-year, $500 million deal. Yeah, $500 million. And TBN, they were on the hook for pretty much all the major production costs. We're talking a brand new studio in Texas, the works. So why would they agree to shell out that kind of cash? Well, it all came down to some very specific promises from Dr. Phil. Promises that, as we'll see, turned out to be allegedly, well, completely false.
So this whole deal really hinged on a couple of key promises. According to the lawsuits that came later, Dr. Phil made some pretty crucial claims to get TBN to sign on the dotted line. But the biggest one, the real game changer, he allegedly told them that he personally owned his entire 21-year library of shows from CBS. And not only that, but he could give it to the new network for free. You gotta understand, for TBN, this was everything. This was the linchpin, the one thing that would make this whole thing profitable right out of the gate.
And just like that, the deal was done. TBN, the big Christian network, took a commanding 70% stake in the new company, Merit Street Media. That left Dr. Phil's company with the other 30%. So, to be clear, TBN had the money and they had majority control. Keyword there, had, because that didn't last long.
Yeah, it really didn't take long for that holy alliance to turn into an all-out holy war. TBN started claiming that Dr. Phil wasn't delivering on what he'd promised. So, by August, they turned off the money tap. They just stopped funding the whole operation. And this, right here, seems to be the turning point. This is where Dr. Phil allegedly went from trying to fix the partnership to plotting how to take it over completely.
And how do we know this was his plan? Well, because he literally put it in writing. I mean, look at this. This text message to an investor just lays it all out. He wasn't just, a little ticked off at his partners. No, he was actively working on a project, his word, to kick them out of the very company that they owned 70% of? Wow. Okay, so the big question is, how did he actually pull this off? Well, here's the alleged story. He went to TBN's president and said, hey, I've got all these rich investors lined up, ready to pour cash into the network. But there was a catch, a big one. They would only invest if he, Dr. Phil, was the majority owner. And you know what? TBN bought it. They actually agreed. They swapped their equity, and just like that, the entire ownership structure was flipped completely on its head.
And if you want to know what was going through his head, look no further. This, right here, is the smoking gun. It's an email from the very same day the ownership swap happened. He's writing to his publicist, celebrating what he'd just done, and he calls it, in his own words, a gangster move. This makes it pretty clear, doesn't it? In his mind, this wasn't just a business deal. This was a straight-up hostile takeover.
So what happened to all those wealthy investors he promised? Shocker, they never showed up. Now the company is just bleeding cash, and it's getting hit with lawsuits from people they haven't paid. Like, get this, the Professional Bull Riders Association. So with his back against the wall, Dr. Phil launched a new, way more drastic plan. And this one involved using the bankruptcy courts as a weapon.
Now you have to remember, at this point, he's still the sole board member of Merit Street. That means he has a legal duty, a fiduciary duty, to act in the company's best interest. But while that's going on, he secretly goes and incorporates a brand new competing company called Envoy Media. The plan was pretty simple, really. Build a lifeboat for himself before he scuttled the original ship.
Okay, let's break down this 5-step plan because it is audacious, to say the least. Step 1.
file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. This puts a pause on all the company's debts, like the millions they owe to the bull riders. Step 2, and this is crucial, the bankruptcy wouldn't stop Merit Street's lawsuits against TBN. See how that works? Step 3, start siphoning all the good stuff, the valuable assets, over to his new company, Envoy. Step 4 and 5, relaunch the whole thing, now free from TBN and all that annoying debt. It was basically a scheme to wipe the entire slate clean and start fresh.
And would you believe it? He put the whole plan in a text message. Again. He literally texted an investor saying he was filing for Chapter 11 to wipe out all the shit. I mean, he's confirming the whole plan right there. Get rid of the bull riders claim, but keep his own. Now, he did try to delete this text later, but, and this is a big but, not before he'd already forwarded a copy to someone else. Oops.
Okay, so now the whole mess lands in a courtroom, and the whole plan comes under the intense microscope of bankruptcy judge Scott Everett. And let me tell you, this judge started pulling on a few loose threads, and the whole sweater just started to unravel.
What the judge found was just a staggering web of conflicts of interest. I mean, check this out. The wife of Dr. Phil's main investor, she somehow ends up on the committee that's supposed to be in charge of paying back creditors. Then you have Merit Street's chief restructuring officer, the guy whose entire job is to save the company. And he's caught red-handed planning how to move all its best assets over to Dr. Phil's new company, Envoy. It's like they were stripping the car for parts while telling everyone they were just giving it a tune-up. And that deleted text message? The judge was not happy about that. Not at all. He didn't mince words. He called it, and I'm quoting here, an act of intentional destruction of property. And he said it was done for one reason and one reason only, so that I, the judge, would not see it. Yikes.
And it's safe to say the judge was not buying what Dr. Phil's team was selling. When talking about one of Merit Street's top executives, the judge basically said his testimony was not entirely credible. And then he added this little gem. I lost count how many times he was impeached. I mean, let me just say, when a federal judge says he's literally lost count of how many times you've contradicted yourself under oath, you are having a very, very bad day in court.
So in the end, Judge Everett saw this whole Chapter 11 thing for what he believed it was, not a real attempt to reorganize, but a fraudulent scheme. So he took a pretty rare and drastic step. He converted the case to a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. And what that means is game over. No more reorganizing. Merit Street Media was to be completely liquidated, sold for parts, basically, to pay off whoever they could. The company was officially dead.
So that should be the end of the story, right? The company's dead, the founder's grand plan got totally exposed in court. You'd think that's it. But nope. This whole saga has one last, pretty ironic twist.
That's right. Just a short time after Merit Street was officially ordered to be liquidated, Dr. Phil's new company, Envoy Media, the lifeboat company he built, announced a huge new deal with Spectrum, one of the biggest cable providers in the entire country. So Dr. Phil didn't just survive this corporate meltdown, you could pretty easily argue he came out even further ahead.
And all of that leaves us with a really fascinating question, doesn't it? I mean, sure, the lawsuits and legal battles will probably drag on for years, but the business just keeps moving forward. Dr. Phil is back on TV in living rooms all across America. So here's the thing to think about. If a company gets driven into the ground, gets liquidated by a judge who calls the whole thing a scheme, but its founder just immediately relaunches with an even bigger deal, what does that actually say about accountability in the end?